Good morning, everyone. I hope everybody is doing well. I hope everybody is having a good morning. My name is Dushyant Patni. I'm going to be taking your English video lectures from now on. I've been a writer for more than a decade now, and I'm now going to be your English teacher. So I hope all of you have fun. My style of teaching usually revolves around providing you with the information that you need to understand the chapter rather than explaining every little thing to you. I do not believe in spoon feeding. I believe that everybody has the capacity to learn. You just need the right tools and the right guidance to do it. So my first request to every student is to go through the chapter on your own. We are studying The Portrait of a Lady by Khushwant Singh, as you can already tell by the title by now. Khushwant Singh is one of my favorite authors of all time. He has been one of the most influential figures in my literary career. There used to be something called Wheeler bookstores and railway stations, and there I used to find his books when I was very young. So he was always a huge influence, and his writing style reminds me a lot of people like Jack Kerouac, Charles Bukowski, Hunter S. Thompson's. All the names I'm listing right now, you should be taking notes. You should be looking these people up because if you read good things, you will write good things. That's the first step to writing better, is to read better. If you read garbage, you'll write garbage. If you don't read garbage, you won't write garbage. That's basically it. So sit with your rough notebook when you're listening to this video lecture and take notes of whatever I'm telling you. Also make sure that the words that I'm highlighting in the video, that you sit with the dictionary. Most people believe that they have a dictionary on their phone or on their computer and it works the same. It doesn't. An actual physical copy of a dictionary will always serve you much better than a digital version can ever. A physical copy of a dictionary helps you to understand words in a much better light than you do while doing it digitally. So I'm not saying don't look it up online, or if you don't have a dictionary with you, you can look up words online, but I would suggest you to keep a dictionary with you at all times whenever you're going through an English chapter or whenever you're reading a book or something. Anytime you're doing something related to English, always have a dictionary around you, or always make sure to look up words that you don't understand. So I think the intro has been long enough, and let's get into the chapter from now. So let's talk about some of the key facts of the story. As we already know, the author is Khushwant Singh, which I have repeated a million times by now. But the genre is short story. The setting is rural and urban India. And we'll talk a little bit more about the setting in a little bit. But first, I want to talk about the perspective, which is first person biographical. First person perspective means everything that we're reading, everything that we're seeing comes directly from the eyes of the author. It's not a second-hand account, it's not a third-hand account, it's a first-hand account of what he experienced and what his thoughts are going on in his mind or what he is thinking at that time. So that's where the first-person perspective comes in. At the beginning of the chapter, there's a text that says, notice these expressions and infer their meaning from context. So we'll go through these in a little bit. You can pause the video as many times as you want. If I'm talking too fast, you can slow it down on YouTube or anything. So we'll take a look at them one by one, and this will give you an idea of what I mean by his writing style being very imagery based. Imagery based, or being very imaginative, or being very visual. You can use a billion terms for it, but there's nothing more better to describe it than to actually read it. So let's just start reading it. The thought was almost revolting. The thought that the author's grandmother was once young and pretty doesn't make sense to the author. He uses the word revolting to denote that even the idea of his grandmother being young is completely foreign and disgusting to him. An expanse of pure white serenity. Here the author is using the metaphor to convey that his grandmother, who at that point had all white hair, radiated an energy that was serene and calming to a young child. Hence, he compares her to an expanse, which means a large swath or area of serenity, for example, a field of freshly fallen snow. Remember, all the difficult words, all the words that you don't understand in the text, you need to be looking them up. You need to be writing them down either in your fair notebook or in your rough notebook, but you need to be looking these up right now. A turning point refers to a point where the author's relationship with his grandmother changes drastically after they move to the city house. So next it says, accepted her seclusion with resignation. This shows that the author's grandmother passive submission to her secluded life after she gradually loses touch with her grandson. Basically, it means that she accepted the fact that she was going to be alone because her grandson has grown up. Her grandson has his own world now. So that's what accepting her seclusion with resignation means. A veritable bedlam of chirruping. Now, this is one of my favorite expressions that he has used. I mean, this is very eloquent. This is very, very eloquent. This is actually how you're supposed to write when you're writing. You're actually supposed to paint a picture with words. So look up what it means. The definition is on the screen. I'm going to read it for you once again, but you need to look this up because this is brilliant writing. A veritable bedlam of chirruping. Here, the author uses his eloquence to describe the chaotic sound of sparrows being fed by his grandmother in the mornings. Frivolous rebukes. It refers to the casual and light-hearted way his grandmother feeds the sparrows, jokingly scolding them and chasing them away, but still feeding them. The sagging skins of a dilapidated drum. Here, the author uses a metaphor of a dilapidated, old, broken down drum to compare the sagging skin of his grandmother to. So her wrinkled and old skin, which is loosely hanging over her flesh, is compared to a drum or an old dilapidated drum. Look up this word as well. Dilapidated. Dilapidated means decrepit, old, ancient, ruined, broken. I mean, there's plenty of synonyms. You can just look them up. So I hope everybody has finished going through the story by now. If you haven't, you can still pause the video, you can still go through it. I'll be taking a look at the overall story and exploring some of the main literary themes, some of the main philosophical themes that the author touches upon. And then we'll move on towards the conclusion and the question answers and everything else. One of the first themes of the story is the relationship between the author and the grandmother. Since it's told in his first person perspective, it's his view of how his grandmother is. So it starts off with the viewpoint of a very young child who looks at his grandmother as this beautiful creature who exists just in the state of being perpetually old. Like he cannot imagine her even being young. He cannot even imagine her being married. He cannot imagine anything except her, his grandmother, being this old, kind, gentle soul who is the most calming presence in his life. Then the second phase of the story is when they move to the city, and slowly by slowly, little by little, he starts losing touch with his grandmother. They start losing their little rituals they had in the village. The language barrier, that is very interesting because his grandmother speaks Punjabi in the house, and he goes to an English school and he starts speaking in English to her, and she doesn't like it because she doesn't understand it. Then he develops hobbies like music, and she doesn't like it. She thinks that music is meant for street people, for beggars, for people who are not of good character. That's what she thinks because she's from a different generation. The third phase of the story is when the author goes off to university, and this time this grandmother is just completely secluded and she devotes herself to charity in the form of feeding sparrows. After 5 years, when the author comes back from university, he sees that his grandmother hasn't much changed. She's still the same old lady that he left behind. Grandmother realizes that her time is coming near, that she is going to pass away soon. And the story ends on a very, very sad note that his grandmother passes away and even the sparrows don't come by the house to eat anymore. The author touches upon a lot of things. I mean, we're going through a time right now where we're losing family members. I mean, you might know somebody who has lost somebody to COVID. I personally know people that have lost their lives to COVID. I mean, my close relatives and everybody. And in a way, it's a very sad situation right now because we're losing knowledge. We're losing this whole generation that has an entirely different experience than us. A generation that has lived a different life than us. Like, for example, my grandmother was born 10 years before independence. She saw this country becoming independent. She saw electricity being brought into her village for the first time. She saw running water being brought into the village for the first time. And slowly by slowly, she is going to grow old and she is going to go pass away. That is the inevitable fact of life. We are all going to die. None of us get out of this life alive. But it's a sad thing that we're losing this generation, and a lot of us don't care about them anymore. A lot of us don't care about their stories anymore. Because we get involved in our own lives, we get involved in our own stories. We go to college, we get jobs, we start our own families, we move out of the house. And grandparents become stories to us, they become legends, they become myths instead. And I think there's a quote that says, you die twice, once when you pass away and once when the last person forgets your name. And that's very appropriate, and I think that fits the story really well because his grandmother is living on in his memory and she will only pass away when he forgets about her. So I think that's a very sad and a bittersweet ending, you can call it. So that's an overview of the story, and let's move on to the textbook part, the question answer part, and the themes analysis and everything else. That concludes our lesson, The Portrait of a Lady by Khushwant Singh. I hope everybody had fun. I hope I wasn't too boring. And if I was, you can let me know in the comments and I'll try to be different next time, or I'll try to be more interesting. Please do the work that I've given at the end of the video. Do the question and answers in your fair notebook. The essay that I've asked, please email it to me on time, before our Google Meet preferably, or as soon as you can, or as soon as you can possibly do it. I would be checking your grammar, I'll be checking your language, I'll be checking your expression and your usage of the English language through that essay, and that way I can devise more exercises, I can come up with new ideas, I can come up with things that we can work on together as a class. Please join the Discord server. That way you can reach out to me anytime you want. I can clear your doubts, I can clear any queries or questions you might have in the server, and it creates a more interactive learning experience rather than just me talking to a camera or just us spending time on Google Meet. The Discord server is interactive. It is actually a student community. It's a student club where you can share books, where you can share literature, where you can share a lot of stuff with each other, and I'll be sharing resources with you as well. So make sure you join the Discord server. And yeah, once again, I hope everybody had fun, and I hope to see you guys soon. Bye-bye.